What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. As always, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use that promo code above my shoulder, PHLY365. Deposit $10, place your first bet for just $5, and you'll instantly get $150 back in bonus bets. Whether your bet wins or loses, you can use those bonus bets on spreads, totals, player props, futures, so much more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Hello to you. A happy Friday. We've made it to another end of the work week. The MLB Trade Deadline is officially come and gone, and we have just over 50 games left in the Major League Baseball regular season. A lot to get into. A big thank you to everybody who was a part of the MLB Trade Deadline special yesterday. If you were watching along, if you were in the comments, thank you so much. Of course, a big thank you to both VG and Rich Hoffman for co-hosting with me. Big thank you to Andrew Frazier for being the producer and our co-host as well. A lot of thanks to go around for what was a fun night, even if it was a disappointing night in terms of what the Phillies ended up doing at the end of the trade deadline. We'll get to all of that in just a little bit. We'll, of course, check in on the standings as we do each and every Friday. We'll tell you who's heating up and what teams are cooling down. We'll tell you about whose future is bright, and we'll talk about that in our Shady Rays Future is Bright segment as well. And we'll kind of put a bow on the trade deadline and tell you how I'm feeling now, a little bit removed, like 24 hours removed or a little bit less removed from the end of the trade deadline. Andrew Frazier's with us, so we'll hear from him in just a little bit. I'm Tyler Zulli, and a hello to you all in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. All right, we got an hour to do things. Let's jump right into it with our final recap, if you will, of what has transpired over the last 48 hours. The Phillies make two separate moves with the Minnesota Twins. They acquire closer Jhoan Duran from the Twins on Wednesday evening during the game against the White Sox. And then yesterday they go out and make another move with the Twins and get outfielder Harrison Bader. And the guys that they ended up giving up, here you go. You see Bader's move. They give up the 12th ranked prospect in their system, Hendry Mendez, and pitcher Geremy Villoria in the Harrison Bader move. And then for Jhoan Duran, they end up giving up number 3 prospect, or number 4, depending on which site you use, Eduardo Tait, the catcher, and number 6 prospect and guy who's pitched in the big leagues this year, Mick Abel, in exchange for Jhoan Duran. And you've heard what I've had to say about these two moves, so we'll keep it fairly brief before we kind of start to take a look at the final 50-ish games of the season. Duran is a slam dunk move. This team needed bullpen help in a bad way. We have used the phrase they were an arm short plenty of times, right? We talked about it at the beginning of the season when they did not retain Jeff Hoffman and they did not retain Carlos Estevez and instead opted to bring in Jordan Romano and bring in Joe Ross and hope for the best. They were probably an arm short before anything even began when they started in Washington on March 31st or 30th or whatever day it was that they played in Washington, what feels like 7 million years ago. They were an arm short at the beginning of the season. And you progress through the season and you see what's unfolding. Jose Alvarado is pitching really well. Orion Kerkering has some early season struggles, but then starts to kind of come into his own. Matt Strom's been a little less consistent this year than he was a season ago, but he's still pretty good. You're getting some decent run from Tanner Banks, but Jordan Romano, let's call it for what it is, for the most part this season, has stunk. Joe Ross, not very good this year either. They've already DFA'd, and this happened quite some time ago, DFA'd 2 relievers that they were hoping they were going to get something out of in Jose Ruiz and Carlos Hernandez. Both those guys are no longer with the club and haven't been with the club for, over 2 months at this point. So the reality was, heading into the season, the Phillies were probably already a bullpen arm short. And then Jose Alvarado gets suspended. And now you're looking at it and going, man, they're probably 2 bullpen arms short at this juncture. So you get anything from guys like Max Lazar. You get anything from guys like Daniel Robert. And you're starting to kind of piecemeal this thing together, but you still are feeling like you need help coming into the postseason. They go out and spend money, and it didn't cost them prospects or anything like that, but they go out and spend money and acquire David Robertson, which at some point soon, David Robertson is going to join the big league club. He's ramping up in AAA right now. Velocity looks decent. Command looks okay, at least from what I'm seeing. And at some point, David Robertson is going to join the big league club. And even with the acquisition of David Robertson, we kind of got back to net zero, where the reality was the Phillies are still an arm short in the bullpen. And then on Wednesday, the news breaks that they go out and get Jhoan Duran. And everything that I had talked about with Rob Thompson and the way that he structured his bullpen kind of goes out the window. I've always been a big believer in high leverage outs and getting the outs when you need to get the outs, right? And what I mean by that is if your best pitcher needs to come in the 7th inning to get 3 outs, to get through the heart of the lineup, to go up against 2, 3, 4, or if your best pitcher, for like in the Phillies instance this season, has been Jose Alvarado and he's going to face 2 out of 3 of the batters he's going to face are really good lefties, like he's going to go up and face, Juan Soto or somewhere along that line, right? I think there is merit when you don't have a bona fide closer to go and throw your best pitcher when you need the most important outs. Because if a guy like Alvarado, who's probably stuff-wise is closer capable, if you're saving him for the 9th inning and you need to get outs in the 7th and you don't get those outs, well, maybe the 9th inning becomes a moot point and it doesn't matter anyway. So when your bullpen is structured in a way that it was heading into the season, I think high leverage, quote unquote, is the way to do it. And I think they've done that for the most part over the last 3 years when, they brought in Jordan Romano to be the closer. He was underwhelming. They brought in Craig Kimbrell to be the closer, had a really good first half of the season, then really fell apart in the second half of the season. They did, for the most part over the last 3 years, really probably since 2022. So you're talking about since the World Series run and all the way to 2025, which is now the better part of 4 seasons, they've had some very good relievers. They've had Jeff Hoffman. They've had Carlos Estevez, who probably was the closest thing to a bona fide closer that they've had. Sir Anthony Dominguez in 2022 was very good. David Robertson in 2022 was very good. You've brought in, Jeff Hoffman, and I already said Jeff Hoffman, but you've brought in Romano, and you brought in guys that you could have expected to structure a bullpen in a certain way, and it just hasn't materialized in that sense. You've probably brought in a lot of really good 7th and 8th inning guys and not one true closer. That all changed when they acquired Jhoan Duran on Wednesday night. I think for the first time really in Rob Thompson's tenure, now again, he's had Kimbrell, he's had Estevez, but for the first time in Rob Thompson's tenure as the manager of this team, since this team's been on the playoff trajectory that we've expected, this is the first time the Phillies have had a lockdown, elite-level closer. And I said yesterday on the trade deadline show, this is probably the best closer the Phillies have had since Jonathan Papelbon. And then Rich pointed out, it's probably the first time that the Phillies have had an elite-level closer and been good since 2008 with Brad Lidge. I mean, you're talking about an almost 20-year window where you've had some guys who are good closers, but the team wasn't good, or the team was good and you haven't had that elite level closer in the back end of your bullpen. This is the first time really in this iteration of the Phillies team that they've been able to pair the fact that they're a very good team, a playoff caliber team, and have an elite level closer. And what Jhoan Duran does for this team is allow them to slot everybody down where they should be in this bullpen. Duran is the closer. I think there's no question about it, or at least there should be no question about it. Duran is the closer of this team for the foreseeable future. He wasn't a rental. You've got him for another 2 seasons on top of this. And then, of course, you'll have the ability to have exclusive negotiating rights up until his free agency period. I could foresee a scenario in which Jhoan Duran is a Philly for 5 or 6 years. That is a very realistic thing that could happen. Now, he's going to get paid after, maybe after next year or after the following year before he hits free agency. But I could see a scenario where Duran ends up being a member of the Phillies, back into their bullpen for years to come. He also allows everybody else to slot down in a way that they should. Orion Kerkering, I think, is best served as a high-leverage right-handed reliever in the 7th and 8th inning. They're going to allow him to do that. I believe Matt Strahm is in the same boat from the left side. I think he's able to be best served as a 7th and 8th inning guy from the left side. Then you talk about Robertson and Banks, your next step down guys. Those are your guys who are going to pitch in the 6th and the 7th inning from the right and left side, respectively. And now I head into a postseason or a postseason run with 5 guys that I could feel are in the right position and I feel fairly comfortable with. Now, I don't know what to expect from David Robertson, but I have elite level confidence in Duran, and he's not thrown a pitch for the Phillies yet, but I know how good he is. I have elite level confidence in Jhoan Duran. I have very high confidence in Orion Kerkering and Matt Strahm. And I have pretty high confidence in Tanner Banks in the role now that he's going to face. So at least 4 guys, and depending on what Robertson can provide you, 5 guys heading into a postseason that you feel pretty good about. That, to me, is a much better look out of your bullpen than what you had 2 weeks ago, when it was 3 guys, and depending on how you feel about Tanner Banks, might have been 2 guys. Now you're talking about heading into a stretch run where 12 outs are acquirable if they need to be, where you have a starting rotation that could be good enough to get you 6 innings of strong baseball, turn it over to a bullpen, and feel comfortable getting the final 9 outs. That's the overarching good of this trade deadline. There is no question about it. Jhoan Duran is a home run acquisition for this team. The bullpen got enormously better by bringing in Duran, not just for this year, but for the foreseeable future. But for this year specifically, everybody is allowed to slot where they're supposed to, and that means something to me. Wednesday night was an exciting night to see the Phillies go out and get an elite level closer and not have to give up Andrew Painter, not have to give up Justin Crawford, not have to give up Aiden Miller, not have to give up Barón Escobar. And I've said this before. I really like Eduardo Tait. I think he's going to be a really good hitter in Major League Baseball. Do I know if he's going to be a really good catcher? I don't. But I do believe his bat-to-ball skills are solid. He has low strikeout rates at a young age. Power is there. When you watch him play, like the ball jumps off of his bat when he hits it hard. I do think Eduardo Tait is going to be a very good Major League hitter. Now, whether that means he is a catcher, he's a DH, he's a first baseman, remains to be seen. But I do think he's going to be a very good hitter. But his trajectory is probably at the earliest 2027, 2028. I mean, he's an 18, 19-year-old kid who, while shows physical tools and the smarts at the plate at a young age, probably still is 2 to 3 years away from being a major league caliber type of hitter. With the window that the Phillies have in front of them, I think it's a loss to lose Tait, but I think in order to acquire Duran, you kind of had to do it. And I think this is an excellent move. Now that brings us to Harrison Bader. And if you heard me on the emergency pod, if you heard me on the show last night, I am not a Harrison Bader fan. Harrison Bader is an elite level defender. I think I phrased this almost the exact same way, and I'm going to do it again. So if you watch the show, I apologize. Start with the good. He is an elite level defender. He is probably going to play mostly center field for this team, I would imagine. But whether he plays center field or left field, your defense just got better in the outfield. There's no question about it. I think there is also a scenario, too, if you want it to play like ultra defense with a lefty on the mound, you could theoretically play Bader and Rojas in left and center, and your defense in the outfield is going to be really, really, really good. He's also a good base runner. I think he's got good sprint speed, good base runner. I think he provides you some additional help on the bases as well. I will also say this. If you look at the side-by-side of I'm going to use the 4 guys, and I think you could add Nick Castellanos to this conversation if you wanted to, but I'm going to exclude him from this conversation for now. If you do the side-by-side of Bader and Kepler and Rojas and Marsh, Bader's numbers are going to stand out because he's been better than most of those guys. He's also been really good in the month of July. He had a terrible June and a really good July, where he hit, I think it was 194 in June and over 300 in July. His OPS in that month where he was bad was below 600. His OPS where he was good was above 800. So when he's on, a little bit of a power surge, it's an improvement. And I think on the surface, it's an improvement. And I've softened my take a little bit from last night. My take last night was that the Phillies did not do enough offensively to get things moving in the right direction. And I said, understanding that Harrison Bader is an upgrade right now on this season alone from what they're getting out of Kepler, from what they're getting out of Rojas. And, you could conceivably even say from what they're getting out of like Otto Kemp and at times Nick Castellanos. Now, I have said in the past, I had no interest in bringing in Harrison Bader to begin the season, coming off of the year that he had with the Mets. He's had a much better offensive season this year in Minnesota than he did with the Mets last season. The average has improved. The on-base percentage has improved because of the walks have gotten better. The slugging's better. He's already matched his season high his season total in home runs this year. He played 143 games last year. He had 12 home runs. He's played 90 some odd games this year. He has 12 home runs. I've softened my stance on Bader a little bit for two reasons. One, I think that it's an improvement. The Phillies did get better with Bader in the mix. And two, I do think if the asking price for some of the big-time players or the bigger players in the instance of like guys like Ramon Laureano was what they ended up going for, I think that Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies likely said, we're not going to move on from Andrew Painter. We're not going to move on from Aiden Miller. And we like Justin Crawford enough that if the return is Crawford plus, we're not going to balk at that number. And so with all of that being said, I think that is what Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies viewed and said, there's not a lot available for the price that we're willing to pay that's better than Harrison Bader. Now, with that being said, I've said this multiple times, I'm not a huge Harrison Bader guy. Did they get better? Yeah, I think they did. I think objectively they got better in the outfield. I think they got a little bit more power. And as Futz points out, like if you think about WAR, and I'm not a big WAR guy, but Harrison Bader's WAR is substantially better this season than it is for most of those guys that I just talked about. Did the Phillies get better this trade deadline? Yes, they did. Did the Phillies get enough offensively for what I think a lot of fans are, when they talk about waiting for the other shoe to drop when it comes to the postseason? I don't believe that they did. We talked about it yesterday. The Phillies this season have scored 2 runs or less 31 times this season. For a team that has won 61 games of their first 108, they have scored 2 runs or less 31 times. So did they get better? Objectively, the answer to that question is yes. Did they get better enough to push them over the top when you think about the other teams that they're about to play come postseason time? I don't know if the answer to that question is definitively yes. And I'm going to say this, and then we're going to bring Andrew on, and we'll take our first break. There is a world where the Phillies win games in the postseason 3-2, 3-1, 2-1, based on the strength of their starting pitching and based on an improved bullpen that I think now has roles that are definable and may work within the structure of this team. If you told me you needed 27 outs from Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, one of those 3 guys, plus Matt Strahm, Orion Kerkering, and Jhoan Duran, I feel like those are very attainable 27 outs. But I do also believe there is a reality that the Phillies might find themselves in, that that grouping, the starter plus those 3 guys and whoever else you want to pair in, are going to feel like they're pitching under a microscope because the offense is not sustaining offensive consistency outside of Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, and Bryce Harper. And so there is a world where the Phillies make a deep postseason run because of the strength of their starting rotation and an improved bullpen. There is also a world where the Phillies have a very short postseason run because their offense is sputtering and inconsistent. And that, to me, I think is the frustrating part for a lot of Phillies fans because their expectations are you ran it back, and financially speaking, that was probably your only option, which I've spoken about many times, and I don't have a massive issue with, but you ran it back. You are relying on the strength of your pitching staff, and when you get into the postseason, if you're facing a team like the Chicago Cubs, for instance, if they score 4 runs in a game, are you going to be able to score 5? Can the Phillies do that? Without question. Kyle Schwarber can change the impact of a game with one swing of the bat. as can Bryce Harper. Trey Turner, when he is on, his percentage of runs scored is very, very high. There's no question about it. The Phillies have a good top 4 or 5. Is it enough with the acquisition of Bader to balance out 6 through 9? And if the Phillies starting pitching, let's say, gives up 2 or 3 runs early in a game, are they going to have the firepower to bounce back? And I think that's the question that the Phillies fans are asking today with the acquisition of Harrison Bader. So I'm going to bring in Andrew Frazier, welcome him in as the second member of today's show. Andrew, first and foremost, a hello to you and a happy Friday.
Hello, hello.
I know I just talked a lot, and I know you have a lot of thoughts on this team as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the question for me heading into the final 2 months of the season, where the Phillies are now going to play 28 times in the next 30 days. 30 days, that's September, April, June. 31 days. 28 times in the next 31 days.
Mm-hmm.
Which scenario is more likely?
Mm.
The pitching is as good as we anticipate it to be, starting pitching specifically, and the bullpen vastly improves with Duran and everybody sliding down one, and they have a chance to win a lot of postseason games 3-1.
Okay.
Or they have a short postseason run because there are pitching is good and the offense underperforms, and they lose a lot of games 3-1. Which of those scenarios do you feel right now in your heart ends up being more likely?
The first. I would like to say the first. I'd like to stay positive here, glass half full, and say that they did enough with the acquisition of Jhoan Duran to come in here and solidify and kind of strengthen that bullpen, that they are going to be able to ride on the pitching throughout the remainder of the season into the playoffs.
If that's the case, and Vegas believes this too because they're still second favorites to win the World Series. If that's the case, there is a realistic path to a World Series run because the pitching's that good.
Yeah.
It exists. I you know, somebody said last night on the trade deadline show, like, wow, Tyler being negative. We don't see that very often. I'm more positive on this team than not because I think it's a good team.
Yeah, of course.
And I think it's the strengths of this team and the weaknesses of this team were evident in March. They were evident in June.
Yeah.
And they're evident right now.
Yeah.
They've not changed.
No.
And so did the Phillies get better this trade deadline?
Yes.
They did.
They did. And you said it last night, and I totally agreed with you. This team got better, but they got marginally better.
Well, I think marginally offensively they got better.
Offensively,
I think they got significantly better.
Yes. Pitching, they got way better.
You're right. I think offensively they did get marginally better. And, you know, so I guess what I'm now going to have to wait and see is do I see the team that has a pathway to winning games 3-1 in the postseason? I do. Do I also see a team that has a pathway to losing games 3-1 in a postseason?
Here's my fear. This is my fear with this team. And it's something that we've seen a few years now with this team. You can go all the way back to 2011. Is you have fantastic pitching, but it's not enough.
Sure.
And that's my fear.
I think it's a justifiable concern.
We are hoping, praying that this team is consistent with the bats throughout the rest of the season into the playoffs. If there is a playoff series, okay, and for whatever reason, Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, 2 of the 3, 3 of the 3, even maybe 1 of the 3, go cold, then you have to rely on that back end of that lineup. Is that going to be enough? And we have seen it last year against the Mets. We saw it at the back end of the Diamondback series. We saw it in the World Series against Houston. We saw it the 1 bloody nil. We have seen this team have elite pitching. But
and I think from a starting pitching standpoint, we're there now.
If you don't have the complement of the runs of the offense, it doesn't matter.
So
that's my fear.
I'm going to ask you one final question. I apologize. I know we're late for the break. If I gave you an option heading into the postseason, would you prefer an elite pitching staff with a question mark offense, or an elite offense with a question mark pitching staff?
Elite. I want a glass cannon. I want absolute glass cannon. I want elite offense with
Okay.
an okay pitching staff.
So then if I were to ask you what team worries you the most heading into the postseason, your answer would be the Chicago Cubs.
Yes.
I presume, right?
Yes.
So running down the Cubs lineup, Nico Horner leads off. Kyle Tucker hits second. Seiya Suzuki batting third. Carson Kelly somewhere in that 4-5. Pete Crow Armstrong similar. Michael Busch has been pretty good this year as well. 21 home runs. He hits like 7th or 8th. I think Ian Happ's been really poor as of late. They may end up considering, benching him for a younger player. Dansby Swanson has at times struggled, even though he has 16 home runs. But I gave you that front front 5, right? Horner has been good. Tucker's been insane. Pete Crow Armstrong might be an MVP candidate. Carson Kelly has had a kind of out of nowhere really good season. Seiya Suzuki is like as consistent hitting comes. You look at their pitching staff, Matthew Boyd, Jameson Tyone, like Shota Imanaga's legit, right? But
pedestrian, though.
Their starting pitching doesn't bother me.
No.
But their offense is insane.
Yeah.
The Phillies, I think the Cubs would inversely look at the Phillies and go, man, their starting pitching bothers me. But once you get through Schwarber and Harper, I feel good about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can talk more about it after the break, but it really all depends on where the Phillies are. Are they hot or are they cold going into the playoffs? And are the
to
bats...
be fair, I think that's fair to say about any team, right?
It is. But
over the last couple of seasons, think about the teams that were hot heading into the postseason. Now, the Mets ended up losing to the Dodgers, but the Mets were one of the hottest teams in baseball hitting the stretch, and then use that to beat the Brewers and beat the Phillies and get to the NLCS, where they finally eventually just ran into the Dodgers, who felt like they were Thanos at this point, right? Mm-hmm. But you think about the last couple of seasons. Arizona, same thing. Texas Rangers. Texas was like, their bullpen was historically bad until August in 2023. All of a sudden figured out how to pitch, went to the World Series. Same thing with the Diamondbacks. Phillies were that team in 2022.
They were.
They got hot at the right now. And granted, the Phillies didn't play particularly well at the beginning of September.
No, they didn't.
And then they got into the postseason, started to get on a roll, had that magical game against the Cardinals. And I think they used that one game as a springboard for the rest of the run.
Yeah.
And they ran into the Braves, who were probably better than them that year, beat them because they were hot, ran into the Padres, who I think they were probably better than the Padres, but crushed the Padres in the NLCS.
Yeah, your confidence just keeps going up and up and up.
And so you get to that point. So I think it's a fair point, but I think it's fair to say any of these teams gets hot at the right time.
Sure.
Regardless of their roster construction, I think you're like the Phillies pitching staff this year, starting pitching staff, runs laps around the 2022 team.
Oh,
even though Nola was better and Wheeler was still good, but like Noah Syndergaard started a World Series game for the 2022 Phillies.
That is very true.
Noah Syndergaard, if he was on this team, probably would get left off the playoff roster.
Oh, 100%.
Like that not this year. Syndergaard's probably throwing 75 miles an hour now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're talking about now a starting pitching staff of Wheeler, Sanchez, Suarez. Like, does Luzardo go to the pen? What do you do with Nola? Like, they're good problems to have. But I think it's about, it's baseball, right? It's about getting hot at the right time. And we'll see who that team is going to be over the next 50 some odd games. All right, let's pause for just a moment on the other side. We got to get into our Future is Bright segment, because if you heard me on the Trade Deadline show last night, there was a visceral, guttural scream that I think there might have been an exorcism in my body.
It sounded that way
when a quote was read. We're going to get into our Future is Bright segment. We'll also get to our Ace Hardware Cranking the Heat segment as we talk about who's heating up and cooling down throughout Major League Baseball. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. We'll be right back after this. All right. You know that moment. Now, it's not as sunny today, but it's been hot and sunny and you need your shades, right? You know that moment. You're hanging out at the beach. You go, all right, it's hot. I'm going to take a dip in the ocean. And you dive into the first wave and you come up and you go, where are my sunglasses? Where are my sunglasses? And they're gone. They belong to the ocean now. Poseidon just got another pair of sunglasses. But you have that worry in the back of your head that you're going to lose your shades. Well, don't worry about it when you team up with Shady Rays. Shady Rays offers an incredible protection plan. All pairs of eyewear, whether it's sunglasses or ski goggles or whatever it might be, all of their eyewear is backed with their best protection plan in all of eyewear. All of your pairs either broken, damaged, lost, you'll get a replacement pair guaranteed. And of course, I think that they just look good on your face, right? I've been wearing Shady Rays for a couple of years now, even before they were a sponsor here at PHLY. You can get them in any really any style, color scheme, whatever you might like. I like the more, sleeker, the ones that you wear on the baseball field. I've been wearing them forever, but you can get them in aviators. You can get them in just the classic sunglass look. And of course, you can get them in the best polarized lenses possible. Your optics are going to be crystal clear, and you're not going to complain about the price either. And it's even better if you team up with us here at PHLY. You get an exclusive offer. Head on over to shadyrays.com and use the code PHLY for 35% off a pair of polarized sunglasses. That's a sizable discount. We're not talking 5 or 10%, 35% off your pair of polarized shades. Try for yourself the sunglasses that are rated 5 stars, including by myself and 300,000 other people. All right, let's talk about our presenting sponsor, our friends over at Bet365. Find out why 90 million users worldwide have found out it's never ordinary when it comes to Bet365. They are the pioneers of live in-game betting, and you can live in-game bet across 78 different sports and 780,000 games each and every season. And with MLB early payout, if your team goes up by 5 runs at any point throughout a game, your bet is going to be an instant payout on your straight bets and parlay selections that are marked as winners. And if you're new to Bet365, download the app, use the promo code PHLY365, just deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and you get $150 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. You'll find out why, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Excuse me. Thank you. Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. One more, I think. One more. If you could do the 5 read as we normally do, or welcome back, you give me just a moment. Coming out.
Yeah. Let me see what I can do here.
All right,
you got it? You good?
Yeah, we're good. It's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, let's get into our Future is Bright segment, which, of course, is brought to us by our friends over at Shady Rays. Again, use the promo code PHLY for 35% off a pair of polarized sunglasses, crystal clear optics, durable frames, and the best protection plan in all of eyewear. And the future is bright. Well, it should be soon for one Justin Crawford. Now, if you watched the PHLY Trade Deadline special yesterday, there was a quote from Dave Dombrowski that really, really got under my skin. It grinded my gears, if you will, when it came to Justin Crawford. And what basically Dave Dombrowski said, and I'm going to try to find the quote word for word, but I'll paraphrase until I do so. He said last night that Justin Crawford is big league ready, and he believes he is a major league caliber player and would not hesitate to call him up. He said, however, they don't have the playing time for him at this point today. Said that Max Kepler is going to play left. Bader's here. Rojas is still here. Marsh is still here. Otto Kemp's still here. And basically what Dave Dombrowski told me is that Justin Crawford is good enough to be a major leaguer, but they believe that if he's going to be on the big league roster, he has to play every day, and they are going to stick, at least at this current juncture, with what they have. And if you watched the trade deadline show yesterday, there was a visceral, guttural scream that came out of it was somewhere deep inside, like the recesses of my belly, if you will. And if you've watched the show in the past, you know I'm not a overly reactionary guy. I'm not a crazy hot take guy. I don't come in here and spit venom into the microphone and scream about a whole lot. It's just not the way that I do things. That scream, that tilt my head back and needed to get that out, came from a place of frustration. And where that frustration came from is at this point, I don't know what else the Phillies want Justin Crawford to do. Justin Crawford this season in AAA Lehigh Valley is hitting .325. He's slashing .325, .411, .426, .836. He's got 3 home runs this year, 24 extra base hits, 31 RBI. He's stolen over 30 bags, 33 to be exact, and has only struck out 69 times in 83 games. To go a little bit deeper, he has 31 multi-hit games this season. In fact, you dive a little bit deeper than that, he has 10 games of 3 hits or more. Let's get into some of the nerd numbers, and then we'll talk a little bit more surface level stuff. He has a WRC plus, which is weighted runs created plus, of 122 or better at every level of the minor leagues that he has played at. To give you kind of an understanding of what that is, it's the league average is 100, and he's been at 122 or better every stop of the way. Since 2023, he's hit no worse than 288 throughout the Phillies minor league system. His hard hit percentage this year is 40.5%. Major League Baseball average is about 35%. His strikeout rate's 18%. Major League Baseball's average is about 23%. What does Justin Crawford do well? He gets on base. He has ability to steal bags. He's an elite base runner. He's a very good defender, and he's an excellent athlete with good bat-to-ball skills who has the ability to spray the ball in all directions. I'm not exactly sure what else the Phillies want in Justin Crawford other than the fact that he doesn't hit the ball for power and he doesn't hit home runs. And you can sit here and tell me that his launch angle metrics are bad and his power really is non-existent. And it's a fair statement to make. It's real. It exists. His ISO this season, and ISO is isolated power, and basically what you do with ISO is you take the slugging percentage of a player, subtract it from the batting average, and that's what the ISO comes out to be, and it gives you kind of a raw, pure power number. His isolated power this year is 100. I understand that that is low. I understand that his career trajectory probably is not going to be much more than that. He's a guy who puts the ball on the ground a lot. He's a guy who uses his legs and his speed to beat out base hits. He's a guy who kind of sprays the ball all over the field. He doesn't swing and miss a lot, but the power I don't think is ever going to really develop into much further. I totally get that. If Justin Crawford hits 10 home runs in a season over 162 games, I think that's a good number because that's not the player that I'm expecting him to be. And I also recognize that Justin Crawford this season has a 4.02 BABIP. First and foremost, that's going to come down when he gets to the major league level as defenses continue to get better and better as he progresses through the ranks. The defense at the major league level is at the elite echelon. There's no question about it. The league average for BABIP is about 300, which means when Justin Crawford puts the ball in play, he's getting on base a lot based on the balls that he puts in play. That number surely is going to come down throughout the trajectory of his career. He's gotten a little bit, 402 tells you he's getting a little bit lucky with the balls that he's putting in play, but he is also forcing defenses' hands by using his speed after putting the ball in play. The swing track thing is a real argument. The power numbers are real arguments. The fact that he has to play every day if he gets called up is a real argument. But at this point, knowing what you have at the major league level, knowing that there is a guy in Max Kepler who probably at this point should be designated for assignment, knowing that you have a guy in Johan Rojas who struggles consistently to hit major league pitching, knowing that you have potentially two platoon pieces or positions in your outfield heading into the postseason, I'm not exactly sure what else the Phillies need to see to give the kid an opportunity to run with the left field position every day. If you offered me a solution of Justin Crawford in left, Marsh Bader platoon in center, or flip it and say Crawford Marsh platoon in left and Bader in center based on the matchups, knowing that Crawford gets an opportunity to play more times than not, that's an opportunity that I would take. I am not asking Justin Crawford to come in here and set the world on fire. I'm not asking Justin Crawford to come in here and be the catalyst difference maker that this offense is lacking. I'm not asking Justin Crawford to come in here and hit first or second in this lineup. But I think having an opportunity to play every day at the big league level for a guy who consistently hits above 300 pretty much everywhere that he goes, including this season where he's hitting, again, 325 at the AAA level, for a guy who has not hit below 282 at any level at the professional level, where his averages so far through the course of his career have gone 297 at the Florida Complex League, 344 in low A, 288 at high A, 332 in 2023 spring training, 302 at high A in 2024, 333 at double A in 2024, 313 in spring training in 2024, and 325 this year in triple A. I think there's a reasonable ask that Justin Crawford should have already been a major leaguer. And Rich Hoffman pointed this out yesterday and in the newsletter too. The runway probably should have been in May, not gearing up for the postseason. I 100% agree. I think it's unfair to ask a 21-year-old kid to come up in the midst of a postseason run and be a contributor. But I think at this point, his numbers are undeniable that he deserves an opportunity to play at the major league level, especially knowing what you have currently and have had for a majority of the regular season. If Max Kepler were hitting 250, that's all I'm asking for would be 250. I don't think we have this conversation. Because if he were at 245, 250, and his home run totals, instead of being at, I don't know, what's he at, 10, 12 home runs? If his home run totals were closer to 17, 18, and he drove in 45 instead of 33, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. Because I think Max Kepler would play every day. Or, now that you have Harrison Bader, you'd platoon Kepler and Marsh and play Bader in center. And that's your three. That's your circle of three, but there'd be one platoon instead of two. You've been, I think underwhelming is a slight to the word underwhelming when it comes to Max Kepler. I think underwhelming is a slight to underwhelming when it comes to Jhoan Rojas. Brandon Marsh has swung the bat better over the last couple of weeks. There's no question about it. He's been a really pleasant surprise, and his defense has been pretty good the last, especially in that series against the White Sox. But I think knowing what I know about Justin Crawford and knowing what the limitations are, I think the good outweighs the bad. And before we hit the break, Andrew, I want to ask you about Justin Crawford. Because I like this kid a lot. I've made it evidently clear that I like this kid. And I still believe, no matter what, no matter how much you believe in power and launch angle and swing trajectories, and the league being home run centric, probably more so than it's been since the steroid era in the late 90s and early 2000s. Mm-hmm. I still firmly believe that there is room on a roster, there is room in a lineup for a guy who consistently has good bat-to-ball skills, doesn't strike out a lot, and has the capability of hitting close to 300 in a lineup, even if the power doesn't necessarily materialize at any point in his career.
Yeah, I agree. I still don't understand why he hasn't been brought up yet. If they had no interest in trading him in the trade deadline, then what was the point of not bringing him up earlier? You know, I understand, like, you're trying to hide him, trying to keep his value, trying to do all of that stuff, you know, before the trade deadline, because God forbid something happens, he comes up and he doesn't look as good as we have. And
you and I talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Once we got to this point, I'm okay with him not being called up in that like 2-week stretch.
Sure.
Whether it be via he was getting traded or they didn't want to bring him up and then acquire somebody and send him back down. That like 2-week window, I was okay with.
Yeah.
Now that we've turned that page, I think it's time.
It's time. It's definitely time.
And I know what they're going to do. If they do call Justin Crawford up, they're going to wait till whatever, I think it's the 15th, the deadline day to preserve his rookie status for 2026.
Yeah.
Because it's all about contracts and arbitration and stuff like that. So if Justin Crawford's going to get called up at this point, he is going to be called up midway through August. Mm-hmm. That may be the time you see like Max Kepler get DFA'd or Jhoan Rojas get sent down. But I think my overarching statement of it's time really is just coming out of it's probably overtime.
It's overtime, yeah. And you're bringing him into a time where it's going to be like kind of like the you're in that stretch, right? You're in that stretch of like we're getting ready for the playoffs, and to bring him in at a time like that, you know, is that a lot of pressure for him?
Yeah, I think it is. It's not fair to ask him to do that,
you know.
But I don't know. I'm not sure they have much of a choice.
Like, are they expecting too much of Justin Crawford to come up here and they be this this batter, this guy to help produce. And it's like in a time where it's like crunch time now. And it's like if he doesn't, is that going to get in his head?
It's really
and
unfair
mess
to ask
up
a
his-
21-year-old to be that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
100% unfair.
Yeah.
Unless you're going Bader Marsh full time, I'm not sure the alternatives are much.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. I think he's overdue being up here. And if they're going to do it, then do it. Bring him up.
All right, let's pause for just a moment. On the other side, we're going to get into our Ace Hardware Cranking the Heat segment where we'll check in on the National League standings. We have an updated standings graphic for you to take a look at, and we'll wrap up today's show here on the PHLY Phillies podcast as the Phillies get set to take on to play 3 against the Detroit Tigers here this weekend. Saturday, Wheeler Scooble. Going to be a good one, Andrew. I'm stoked for it. We'll talk more about it on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast. We'll be right back after this. All right, whether you've got an outlet that you said you were gonna fix since last summer, or you need something significant done like plumbing, electric. I know the weather's cooled off a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit of a cooler week this week than it was last week, but don't let false fall or anything lull you into that as false sense of security. We still got some heat coming. August, September, even October now in Philly, it can still be hot. Don't let your AC fail during the hottest portions of the month. Head on over to Ace Hardware and get with Ace Hardware and Ace Hardware Home Services to get your AC fixed and tuned up to the way that it's supposed to be so your home is humming all year long. What does Ace bring to you? Why choose Ace? Well, they bring experience. They're local plumbers and techs that handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installation and upgrades. They bring understanding. They know what your goals are. They're going to listen to you, and they're going to work with you until the job is complete and you're satisfied. They also bring that helpful home. They know exactly what you're looking for. You want to spend more time on the projects that actually matter. And of course, they want to make sure that they're going to work within your budget and get you satisfied to 100%, to get you to 100% satisfaction with the job at hand. So head on over to Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project today.
Oh, Tyler, I walked into my garage yesterday and it felt like a sauna.
Dude, I got to tell you, even for somebody who loves summer, it's getting a little ridiculous out there.
Dude, I know. So, I got 10 bags of ice and I was going to make an ice bath because, the healing properties and all that stuff and just to beat the heat. But when I went to go make the ice bath outside, all the bags of ice melted.
Andrew, why didn't you just, turn on your AC?
Because I'm trying to be energy efficient, Tyler.
All right, listen. Instead of trying to go through your new skincare routine, all you have to do is check out Pico's energy-saving rebates. They've got all of the deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work and cut your bill.
Wait. So no more ice?
No, unless you're trying to do a polar plunge, you're good.
Now that's what's up.
Just head on over to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything. Heating, cooling, lighting, you name it. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Hello to everybody in the chat. I haven't had a chance to say hello to you all yet. It's been a pretty busy, jam-packed show, but appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much for being a part of our trade deadline special yesterday as well. All right, it's time to get into our Cranking the Heat Pennant Push segment, which is brought to you by Ace Hardware and Ace Hardware Home Services. We are checking in on which teams across the National League are heating up, which teams are cooling down, as we get a clearer picture of the National League postseason standings. Teams starting to separate themselves a little bit from the pretenders. There were a bunch of teams in the National League this week that became sellers, including teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks, the San Francisco Giants. And so we'll check in now on the National League standings. Let's take a look at where everybody sits this afternoon heading into this weekend series. Not a lot of changes at the top. And in fact, the Brewers, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Cubs, and the Phillies all went 3-3 since the last time we checked in on this segment. All five of those teams, 3-3. Now the numbers have moved a little bit. Last week the Cubs were 5 up on the Reds. They're now 3.5 up. The Phillies were 3 up. They're now a 1.5 up. So let's check in first and foremost, Andrew, on the team that is heating up, and that is the San Diego Padres. They're one of the few teams on this list that are not currently 3-3 in their last 6 games. In fact, the Padres have won 5 consecutive games, including sweeping out the New York Mets and taking the final 2 against the St. Louis Cardinals, which now puts the Padres pretty squarely in the postseason run, ahead of the teams in the hunt like the Reds and the Cardinals and the Giants. But not only are the Padres heating up in the standings, my goodness, Andrew, we talked about this yesterday. A.J. Preller is going for broke.
Yeah, it really is. They made a lot of moves. They gave up a lot of prospects, but they made a lot of moves to win now.
Let me read you the prospect numbers that the Padres surrendered in the last 48 hours. The Padres gave up, excuse me, I'm trying to find it here. They gave up their number 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 12, 13, 17, 26, and 29th ranked prospects. They gave up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of their top 30 in order to acquire Mason Miller, J.P. Sears, Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano. Who else did they get? I know it was more. Who else did the Padres acquire?
Nestor Cortez.
Who I'm not a huge Nestor Cortez fan, but
let me run through.
So
JP
you know how when
Sears.
you go to when you go to a website and you can hit Control F?
Yeah.
If I Control F the Padres, they come up 27 times in the trade deadline breakdown article. So they got Mason Miller, J.P. Sears, as you said, Nestor Cortez,
O'Hearn,
Laureano. I think they made Will Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
I think they made another move. But anyway, the point being is they gave up a ton of dudes to pretty much say, we're going for broke in 2025. And they were a good team. I think they maybe a little underperformed in the first half of the year, playing much better in the second half. I think this Padres team is going to be dangerous come postseason time.
Yeah.
Miller, Suarez out of the back end of the bullpen. Starting pitching's good. You know, Pavetta's been good. King's been good. Cease has been underperforming this year, but, you know, I think that they still got to... And it's a lineup that they don't strike out. They good average, you know, especially for a league that's not very high on average this year. They're one of the higher averages in baseball. Mm-hmm. Padres might be dangerous come postseason time.
Yeah. They're definitely one of the teams I'm most concerned about.
All right, and then you see the Cincinnati Reds are the first team out of the mix. The Cardinals, I believe, are a game under 500 now. And then we get to the team that is cooling down and a team that I think probably recognizes it's not a postseason team in the San Francisco Giants. The Cardinals are at 500. The Giants are 6 games back at 54 and 55, but they've won just twice in their last 10 games. And Andrew, crazy stat. Do you know the Giants have the worst record in baseball since acquiring Rafael Devers 35 games ago?
Yeah, that's wild.
They are 13 and 22 since acquiring Devers.
Snake bitten.
Right now, they have, as July comes to an end, they scored the 4th fewest runs in July. They're in the bottom 10 in average slug and OPS, and currently have one player, Elliot Ramos, hitting over 260.
Wow.
I think the Giants are cooked.
They're cooked, yeah.
They don't have enough pitching to compete. They moved a couple of guys that, I'm not super high on Jordan Hicks. Kyle Harrison, I think, is going to be very good, but wasn't quite there just yet. They moved some pieces to go get Devers, and they're not playing well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's a snake-bitten guy. He's got, as Anthony would say, Devers has fleas.
So the Padres are the 3rd wild card team. Phillies 2nd, Cubs 1st. Phillies are a game and a half up on the Padres. They are, I believe the Reds are 3.5 back. So they're 5 games up currently on the Cincinnati Reds, who are 3.5 back of the Cincinnati or the San Diego Padres. I think, Andrew, I look at these teams. I think there are 6 playoff spots right now for 7 teams. I do not believe the Cardinals are a playoff caliber team. I do not believe the Giants are a playoff caliber team. I think the top 6 are playoff caliber, and I think the Cincinnati Reds are a playoff caliber team.
Yeah.
I think one of those 7 teams are not going to make the postseason.
I think it's going to be the Reds.
And I probably would agree with you. I think the current wild card teams are going to end up being the 3 wild card teams.
Yeah, I think
Now,
so.
the one you could say, like, do the Brewers or Cubs win the Central? Conversation to be had. Do the Mets or Phillies win the East? Conversation to be had. But I would say, like, those 6 teams, I would bet you are probably the 6 teams that make the postseason.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree. I don't see the Reds surpassing anybody.
They're the only one that gives me any kind of pause. Like, because if you get beyond the Giants, you're talking about the Marlins are next, and then it's the Diamondbacks, and those teams are not very good.
No. They were sellers.
All right, so that's our Ace Hardware Cranking the Heat segment, our pennant push segment as we check in on the standings each and every Friday. On the other side, we're going to wrap things up just real quick. We got to hit one final break. We'll wrap things up on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We will be right back after this. All right, if you need flooring, you need Empire today. They are the trusted flooring experts who have dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. Listen, we've all been to the big box store before, and you wander the aisles aimlessly. Somehow you end up having to haul all of that material home by yourself, and if you drive a small car like I do, I don't know what you're going to do with it. You're going to strap it to the roof. You're going to run it through the back of your trunk. I don't know. It's just a mess, right? You can get all of those questions answered when you work with our friends over at Empire today. They live and breathe flooring, and they'll be with you every step of the way. They're going to help you pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space, and you can see how it's going to look with your furniture in your house. You'll get precise measurements taken and have all of your questions answered so there are no surprises. And Empire offers clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing so you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free home estimate today, and you can get up to $350 in a discount when you use the promo code PHLY. Once again, a $350 discount by using the promo code PHLY. Restrictions do apply. Empire Today/PHLY for full details. Thinking about popping the question to your special someone? Well, then I would not recommend anywhere else except Golden Nugget Jewelers, because for the past 30 years, Golden Nugget Jewelers have operated in the very same location in the heart of Philadelphia. And customers from Philly, D.C., Jersey, Baltimore, New York have come to Golden Nugget Jeweler to find the perfect engagement ring or wedding band because their staff's highly trained, their prices are good, and they're dedicated to providing you a personalized shopping experience with a vast selection of engagement rings, and wedding bands, along with high-end watches, fashion jewelry, and sparkling diamond necklaces. You'll receive a final cleaning and written appraisal with every engagement ring that you purchase. I can't recommend our friends over at Golden Nugget Jewelers enough. They've been family-owned and operated since 1987, right on the corner of Chestnut and 8th in downtown Philly. You deserve an expert and the best price. Golden Nugget Jeweler, where Philly gets engaged. Head on over to Golden Nugget Jewelry, not jeweler, goldennuggetjewelry.com today to learn more. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. As we are just about to get out of here, let's take a quick look at the weekend series that is for the Phillies. They're going to start 3 with the Detroit Tigers. Tonight, Ranger Suarez gets the ball on the mound against Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty, by the way, pitched really well in the postseason last year. 10 losses this season and a 4.5 ERA. He's not been the same guy that he was a season ago. Zach Wheeler, Tarek Skubal might be the pitching matchup of the weekend across all of baseball this upcoming season. Zach Wheeler, 9-4, 2.5 ERA. Dude, Tarek Skubal's going to win the American League Cy Young again this year.
Yeah, of course.
He's disgusting.
Both of these guys are going to win their Cy Youngs.
10-3 with a 2.09 ERA. And then we wrap up the series. Christopher Sanchez, 9-3, 2.55 ERA. They'll take on Troy Melton, who is making his 3rd career Major League start, 1-1 with a 4.5 ERA. The first thing I thought of when I saw this guy, well, I don't know why, but I thought of Troy Bolton from High School Musical. Zac Efron's character in High School Musical. I was like, yeah, Troy Bolton's pitching on Sunday. Got to get your head in the game, right?
Yeah.
But he'll make his 3rd career start for the Tigers on Sunday. All 3 Phillies starters are somewhere between 2.55 and 2.59.
Wow.
And that, to your point, Andrew, when we talked about the beginning of the show, that's why the Phillies still have confidence in their stretch run.
Yeah.
And that's why Vegas thinks they're plus 800 to win the World Series.
Woo!
Those 3 guys right there.
Love it.
All right, we'll be back on Monday. Big thanks to everybody who had the opportunity to join today's show, whether you were in the chat or just hung out and watched the show. Really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun with making content this week, whether it was our emergency pods, our trade deadline special, or our regularly scheduled Monday, Wednesday, Friday podcast. You guys made this a really, really fun week. I can't thank you all enough for being a part of it. Huge thank you to Andrew Frazier for all the work that he's put in this week as well, whether it be producing the emergency pods or last night's trade deadline special or our shows throughout the week. Could not have done this without Andrew as well. We'll be back on Monday as we get you set for the Phillies series against the Baltimore Orioles. Not a lot of days off for the Phillies coming up this month in August. In fact, they will play this weekend and as well as all 7 days next week against the Texas Rangers. All 7 days the following week. They'll be off next Thursday. They'll play the Baltimore Orioles and the Texas Rangers to wrap up the AL swing that they've been on. And then it's 10 straight against the Rangers, the Reds, the Nationals, and it's actually 13 straight as they'll play the Mariners as well. The Phillies with just 2 days off over the course of the next 31 days. Buckle up, 29 games in the next 31 days, and we'll have all the coverage for you here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Switch on over to the PHLY Eagle Show. They're live now, PHLY Sixers at 3 o'clock to wrap up this week's festivities. Again, big thanks to everybody who's been a part of this week's show and to Andrew Frazier as well. I'm Tyler Zulli. Enjoy this weekend series against the Detroit Tigers, and we'll talk to you on Monday at 1 o'clock right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Talk to you then. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.